gratitude.
You've given us a really interesting mix of sources for this one.
Yeah.
A speech transcript, some classic Warren Buffett wisdom, even a glimpse into some hardcore productivity techniques.
It is a cool mix.
It's like a buffet of time-saving tips ready for us to dig in.
And you know, it's interesting. It's not just about squeezing more tasks into your day.
Right.
These sources really emphasize the why behind valuing our time.
Okay.
It's about aligning our actions with what truly matters,
Yeah.
living more intentionally, and maybe even tackling those nagging regrets.
Okay, that's hitting a little too close to home. But seriously, let's unpack this.
Okay.
The sources really hammer home the point that time is a non-renewable resource.
Right.
Unlike money or possessions.
Ah.
There's this quote from one of the articles,
Okay.
"Time is something you cannot buy more of. Once it has passed, there is no way to get it back."
Yeah.
It's like a punch to the gut, but in a good way.
It is a powerful reminder. And it's presented not as a source of anxiety,
Right.
but as a call to action.
Yeah.
The speech we have uses a thought-provoking question to drive this point home.
Okay.
If you only had 6 months to live, what changes would you make?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
I know I'd suddenly find a lot more time for things I've been putting off.
Exactly. That's the point.
Yeah.
Facing our mortality, even hypothetically,
Right.
forces us to confront our priorities.
Okay.
What are we truly spending our precious time on?
Yeah.
Are we chasing fleeting distractions or pursuing what truly fulfills us?
It's like suddenly realizing those must-watch shows aren't so must-watch after all.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this brings us to a key takeaway from the sources.
Okay.
Turning this awareness of finite time into action, not despair.
Okay.
They advocate for living with a sense of urgency, but not stress.
Right.
It's about recognizing the value of each moment and making deliberate choices about how we spend it.
So it's about being more intentional, not just rushing through our days. But how do we actually do that?
Well, the sources don't just leave us hanging with existential dread.
Okay, good.
They offered some really practical frameworks.
Okay.
One that's emphasized is the SMART goals approach. You've probably heard of it. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound.
Oh, yeah. SMART goals are a classic. But I'm curious, do the sources go beyond the basic definition? Do they offer any unique twists or insights on how to apply them?
They actually do.
Okay.
One source suggests using a technique called reverse goal setting, where you start with your desired outcome and then work backward,
Okay.
breaking it down into smaller, more manageable steps.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I usually approach goal setting from the present moment, outlining the steps forward. Reversing it could be a helpful way to ensure each action truly contributes to the bigger picture.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it helps you avoid getting bogged down in unnecessary tasks that don't actually move you toward your ultimate goal.
So instead of saying, I want to be more productive, you might ask, what does ultimate productivity look like for me? What specific outcomes do I want to achieve? And then work backward, outlining the steps needed to get there.
Precisely. It's a powerful way to add more intention and clarity to your goals.
This is making me rethink my whole to-do list. But before I spiral, the sources offer another intriguing concept, the law of three.
Ah, yes. The law of three.
Yeah.
This is about laser focus.
Okay.
It challenges you to identify the 3 most important tasks for each day or week and prioritize them ruthlessly.
I love this idea. Most of us have these giant to-do lists that just keep growing.
Yeah, right.
But are we really focusing on the tasks that move the needle, the ones that truly align with our goals and values?
That's the key question.
Yeah.
The law of 3 forces you to confront those choices.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we have limited time and energy and choosing to spend them on what truly matters most.
So if our listener is feeling overwhelmed by their to-do list right now,
Yeah.
what's the first step in applying the law of 3?
I'd say take a few moments to step back and ask yourself,
Okay.
if I could only accomplish 3 things today, what would they be? Which tasks would have the greatest positive impact on my day, my week, or even my long-term goals?
It's about cutting through the noise and focusing on those high-impact actions.
Exactly. It's a simple concept,
Yeah.
but incredibly powerful when applied consistently.
I like that saying, if everything is a priority, then nothing is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this leads us to another critical point that the sources emphasize.
Okay.
Identifying and conquering those sneaky time wasters.
Oh boy, do I know about those.
Yeah.
Social media, pointless meetings, that pile of clutter that seems to multiply overnight. It's like a constant battle for control.
You hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
The sources get real about these common traps and offer some practical strategies for addressing them.
Okay.
One that stood out to me was the Eisenhower matrix.
Oh yeah, the urgent, important grid. I've heard of it, but honestly, I've never really taken the time to understand it.
Uh-huh.
It seems like one of those things people talk about but don't actually use.
It can seem that way, but it's actually a very simple and effective tool.
Okay.
It helps you categorize tasks based on their urgency and importance
Right.
so you can make more informed decisions about how to approach them.
Okay.
Let's break it down.
Okay.
Imagine a grid with 4 quadrants.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Okay.
What goes where?
The top left quadrant is for tasks that are both urgent and important.
Okay.
These are the things you need to do right now,
Yeah.
like meeting a deadline or dealing with a crisis.
Got it. The drop everything and do this category.
Right.
What about the other quadrants?
The top right is for tasks that are important but not urgent.
Okay.
These contribute to your long-term goals.
Yeah.
But there's no immediate deadline.
Right.
Think planning, learning a new skill, building relationships.
So these are the things we often put off, even though we know they're valuable. I can definitely relate to that.
We all can.
Yeah.
The key is to schedule time for these tasks and treat them with the same level of importance as the urgent ones.
So we're not just reacting to what's screaming for attention.
Right.
We're proactively making time for the things that matter in the long run.
Exactly.
Okay, what about the bottom 2 quadrants?
The bottom left is for tasks that are urgent but not important.
Okay.
Think those interruptions, other people's requests that don't align with your goals, things you feel obligated to do but don't actually move the needle.
So the things we should be saying no to more often?
Exactly. Learning to delegate or politely decline these requests is crucial for protecting your time and energy.
Okay.
And finally, the bottom right quadrant is for the things that are neither urgent nor important.
Yeah.
These are the true time wasters,
Uh-huh.
the things we often turn to for procrastination or mindless entertainment.
Okay, yeah, that one's hitting a little too close to home. Social media definitely falls into that category for me.
We all have our weaknesses,
Right.
but by categorizing these activities as not important, not urgent,
Yeah.
we can start to recognize their true value, or lack thereof, and make more conscious choices about how much time we devote to them.
So it's about being more mindful of how we're spending our time and making sure it aligns with our values and priorities.
Exactly.
I like it. But speaking of things we may be spending too much time on.
You know, it's funny how we often talk about not having enough time,
Right.
but then we find ourselves scrolling endlessly through social media.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting sucked into unproductive tasks.
Uh-huh.
It's like we're almost addicted to wasting time.
It's so true. It's like our brains are wired to seek out distractions, even when we know they're not serving us.
Right.
But the sources don't just point fingers at our bad habits.
Right.
They actually offer some helpful strategies for breaking free.
Absolutely.
Oh.
That they go beyond just telling us to put down the phone
Uh-huh.
and delve into the psychology behind why we procrastinate, why clutter overwhelms us,
Right.
why we say yes to things we should decline.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Let's dive into one of these time-wasting culprits.
Okay.
How about procrastination? We've all been there.
Yeah.
But what do the sources say about tackling this beast?
Well, one source highlights the role of perfectionism in procrastination.
Okay.
We often put things off because we're afraid of not doing them perfectly.
Right.
So we avoid starting at all.
Oh, wow. That resonates. I've definitely fallen into that trap.
Yeah.
It's like, why bother if it's not going to be amazing? But of course, then nothing gets done.
Exactly. The sources suggest reframing our thinking.
Okay.
Instead of aiming for perfection, focus on progress.
Okay.
Break down tasks into smaller, more manageable steps.
Yeah.
And celebrate those small wins along the way.
So instead of trying to write the entire report in one go,
Right?
you might focus on outlining one section today, drafting another tomorrow, and so on.
Precisely.
Okay.
And by focusing on those smaller milestones, you build momentum and avoid feeling overwhelmed.
That's a great strategy. Yeah.
I also noticed that the sources talk about the importance of setting clear boundaries,
Uh-huh.
especially when it comes to work and personal time.
That's essential for anyone who wants to reclaim control of their time.
Right.
The sources emphasize the need to establish dedicated work hours and stick to them as much as possible.
Easier said than done in our always connected world.
It is a challenge.
But I guess it comes back to being intentional about how we spend our time and energy.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's not just about work-life balance.
Uh-huh.
It's about recognizing the importance of rest and rejuvenation.
Right.
One source even mentions the concept of deep work, those periods of focused, uninterrupted time that are crucial for creative thinking and problem solving.
Oh, yeah. deep work.
Yeah.
That's when the magic happens.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to find those uninterrupted blocks of time,
Right.
especially with all the demands and distractions vying for our attention.
It is a challenge.
Yeah.
But the sources suggest strategies like time blocking.
Where you literally schedule those deep work sessions into your calendar, treating them as non-negotiable appointments.
It's like protecting that time as fiercely as you would a meeting with your boss or a doctor's appointment.
Exactly.
Right.
And by carving out those dedicated slots for focused work,
Yeah.
you can actually accomplish more in less time,
Right.
leaving you with more free time for the things you enjoy.
That's the dream. But it's not just about finding time to work. It's
Yeah.
also about making time for things that bring us joy and rejuvenation.
Yes.
One of the sources talks about the importance of incorporating hobbies and activities that feed our souls.
That's so important.
Yeah.
They emphasize the need to view these activities not as indulgences,
Right.
but as essential investments in our well-being.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
We need to replenish our energy and inspiration so we can show up fully in all areas of our lives.
Absolutely.
Right.
And the sources suggest getting creative with how we incorporate these activities into our days. Maybe it's taking a short walk in nature during your lunch break,
Yeah.
listening to an inspiring podcast during your commute,
Right.
or dedicating a few minutes each evening to reading or journaling.
It's about finding those small pockets of time and using them intentionally to nurture ourselves.
Exactly.
Right.
And by prioritizing these activities,
Oh, yeah.
we not only improve our well-being,
Right.
but we also become more productive and focused when we are working.
It's like a virtuous cycle.
Exactly.
But let's be honest, even with the best intentions, life can throw us curveballs.
Oh, yeah.
Things come up, emergencies happen, our carefully crafted schedules go out the window.
It happens.
What do the sources say about dealing with those inevitable disruptions?
They actually address that head on.
Okay.
One source uses the analogy of ship navigating through stormy seas.
Okay.
The key, they say,
Yeah.
is to have a clear destination in mind and a strong rudder to steer you back on course when the waves inevitably hit.
I love that analogy. It's a reminder that we can't control everything,
Right.
but we can control our response to challenges.
Precisely.
Right.
And the sources suggest building in buffers and flexibility into our schedules
Okay.
to allow for unexpected events.
So instead of scheduling back-to-back meetings,
Right.
you might leave a 15-minute gap between them to allow for travel time or a quick break.
Exactly.
Okay.
And by anticipating potential disruptions and building in those buffers,
Yeah.
we can minimize their impact on our overall productivity and well-being.
That's such a helpful mindset shift. Instead of feeling derailed by every unexpected event,
Yeah.
we can view them as opportunities to practice our adaptability and resilience.
Right.
But speaking of adapting and adjusting, the sources also touch on the importance of regularly reviewing and revising our time management strategies.
That's crucial.
Okay.
They emphasize that what works in one season of life may not work in another.
Mm-hmm.
Our priorities shift, our circumstances change,
Right.
and we need to be willing to adapt our approach accordingly.
So it's not about finding the perfect system and sticking to it rigidly.
Right.
It's about being flexible and evolving our strategies as we grow and learn.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the sources suggest scheduling regular check-ins with ourselves, maybe once a week or once a month,
Right.
to reflect on what's working, what's not,
Yeah.
and what adjustments we need to make.
It's like taking our time management temperature and making sure we're still on track with our goals and values.
Precisely. And by embracing this ongoing process of reflection and adjustment,
Yeah.
we can ensure that our time management strategies are always serving us rather than the other way around.
This has been such a valuable exploration of time management. We've covered so much ground, from tackling procrastination and embracing deep work to building in flexibility and regularly reviewing our strategies.
It's a lot to think about.
But I'm noticing a theme that keeps emerging.
Okay.
The importance of aligning our actions with our values.
Yes. That's the heart of it all, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not just about getting things done.
Right.
It's about living a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling.
And the sources offer some really thought-provoking insights on how to do that.
They do.
They talk about identifying our core values, clarifying our purpose, and making choices that reflect our authentic selves.
It's about moving beyond the shoulds and the external pressures and tapping into what truly matters to us.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about reclaiming our time and energy and using them to create a life that we're proud of.
Precisely. And they offer some practical tips for doing this,
Okay.
like creating a personal mission statement, setting intentions for each day or week,
Uh-huh.
and regularly reflecting on our progress.
It's about consciously shaping our lives rather than letting them be shaped by default.
Absolutely.
Right.
And the sources emphasize that this is an ongoing journey, not a destination.
Right.
We may not always get it right,
Yeah.
but the key is to keep learning, growing, and adjusting our course as we go.
This deep dive has been packed with so many valuable insights, but I'm curious, what's standing out to you as particularly relevant or insightful?
For me, it's the emphasis on being kind to ourselves throughout this process.
Okay.
The sources recognize that we're all human,
Right.
that we'll make mistakes, that we'll have days when we feel off track,
Yeah.
but they encourage us to approach time management with a spirit of self-compassion,
Okay.
to celebrate our wins and to learn from our setbacks.
That's such an important reminder.
Yeah.
It's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of productivity and forget to be gentle with ourselves along the way.
Exactly.
Right.
And the sources suggest practices like mindfulness, gratitude, and self-care as essential tools for maintaining our well-being throughout this journey.
It's about recognizing that we're not machines. We're human beings with complex emotions and needs.
Right.
And by tending to those needs, we can actually become more effective and fulfilled in all areas of our lives.
It's a beautiful paradox, isn't it?
It is.
By slowing down,
Yeah.
by prioritizing our well-being,
Yeah.
we actually create space for greater productivity and meaning.
This has been such a rich and thought-provoking conversation.
It has.
But before we wrap up this segment,
Okay.
I want to pose a question to our listener. What's one small step you can take today to align your actions with your values and create a life that feels more authentic and fulfilling?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Hold on to that thought as we head into our final segment where we'll explore the ultimate goal of time management, creating a life without regrets. Welcome back to our deep dive on making the most of our time.
Yeah.
We've explored practical strategies,
Right.
tackled those sneaky time wasters, and even delved into the mindset shifts needed to truly master our schedules.
It's been a journey.
It has.
And now we're getting to the heart of it all.
Okay.
How does all this effort translate into a meaningful life?
Yeah.
A life we won't look back on with the string of what-ifs.
You know, that idea of living without regrets is so powerful.
It is.
It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day grind and lose sight of the bigger picture.
Right.
But these sources really challenge us to examine how we're spending our precious time.
One source puts it beautifully,
Okay.
saying that a meaningful life isn't about the quantity of things we do,
Right.
but the quality of our experiences.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about a packed schedule.
Yeah.
It's about making sure the things on that schedule truly resonate with our values.
So it's not about checking off a million tasks, but about making sure those tasks actually matter to us.
Exactly.
It reminds me of the question the speech posed earlier.
Okay.
If you only had 6 months to live, what would you do differently?
That question is like a gut check,
It is.
forcing us to confront our priorities.
Yeah.
The sources suggest we revisit it regularly,
Okay.
not in a morbid way,
Right.
but as a way to stay aligned with what truly matters.
I can see how that would be powerful.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get swept up in the urgency of daily life and forget about those long-held dreams or passions.
Absolutely.
Right.
The sources remind us that we have the power to choose how we spend our time.
Yeah. Even within the constraints of our responsibilities, they challenge us to ask, is this how I want to be spending this precious hour, this day, this year?
It's about taking ownership of our time rather than letting it slip away on autopilot.
Right.
But I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to feel trapped by obligations, work demands, family responsibilities.
The sources acknowledge those challenges,
So,
but offer a different perspective.
Yeah.
One source talks about the importance of viewing our time not as something we have,
right.
but as something we create.
That's a really interesting distinction.
Yeah.
What does it mean to create time?
It means being proactive and intentional about how we structure our days.
Yeah.
Rather than just reacting to external demands.
Right.
It might involve setting boundaries, delegating tasks, or even saying no to things that drain our energy or don't align with our values.
So it's about making choices that empower us rather than feeling like we're constantly at the mercy of our schedules.
Exactly.
And the sources emphasize that even small changes can have a big impact.
Okay.
Maybe it's carving out 15 minutes each morning for meditation or a walk,
Right.
or dedicating one evening a week to a hobby you love.
It's about reclaiming those pockets of time and using them intentionally to nourish ourselves.
Precisely.
Right.
And as we become more mindful of how we spend our time,
Yeah.
we naturally start to make choices that create more space for the things that truly matter.
It's like a ripple effect, right? Small changes lead to bigger shifts, and eventually we find ourselves living a life that feels more aligned with our values.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the sources also emphasize the importance of being patient with ourselves.
Right.
It's not about achieving some perfect state of balance overnight.
Uh-huh.
It's about making gradual, sustainable changes that support our overall well-being.
So it's not about beating ourselves up for past choices or feeling like we need to overhaul our entire lives tomorrow.
Right.
It's about taking small steps each day to move in the direction we want to go.
Absolutely. And the sources offer some really practical tips for doing that.
Okay.
One source suggests creating a regret list,
Okay.
writing down those things we wish we had done differently,
Yeah.
and then using that list as inspiration to start making different choices today.
That's such a powerful exercise. It helps us identify patterns in areas where we might be settling or letting fear hold us back.
Exactly.
Right?
And the sources also encourage us to cultivate a mindset of gratitude.
Okay.
They suggest taking a few moments each day to appreciate the good things in our lives,
Yeah.
the people we love, the experiences we've had.
It's about shifting our focus from what we're lacking to what we already have and finding joy in the present moment.
Exactly.
Right.
And they point out that this practice not only enhances our well-being,
Uh-huh.
but also helps us make better decisions about how we spend our time.
Okay.
When we're feeling grateful and content,
Yeah.
we're less likely to chase fleeting distractions or seek fulfillment in external things.
It's like that inner shift creates more space for intentionality and purpose in our outer world.
Absolutely.
Right.
And speaking of purpose, the sources also talk about the importance of finding ways to contribute to something larger than ourselves,
Yeah.
whether through our work, our relationships, or our community involvement.
I love that.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that we're not just here to consume and accumulate,
Right.
but to create and contribute.
Exactly.
Right.
And the sources suggest exploring different ways to make a positive impact,
Okay.
whether it's volunteering our time, donating to a cause we care about,
Mm-hmm.
or simply being more present and supportive in our relationships.
It's about finding those ways to use our unique gifts and talents to make the world a little brighter, a little kinder, a little more beautiful.
Beautifully said.
Thank you.
And they point out that this sense of contribution doesn't have to involve grand gestures or heroic efforts.
Right.
It can be woven into the fabric of our everyday lives.
So it's about making conscious choices in our interactions, our work, and our engagement with the world around us.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that even small acts of kindness, compassion, and generosity can have a ripple effect,
Right.
creating positive change that extends far beyond ourselves.
Wow. This has been such a powerful reminder that time management is not just about productivity or efficiency.
Yeah,
It's about creating a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling.
couldn't agree more.
Right.
It's about aligning our actions with our values,
Yeah.
making conscious choices,
Mm.
and embracing the journey, not just the destination.
It's about finding that sweet spot where our passions and talents intersect with the needs of the world around us.
And it's about living each day with intention, purpose, and joy, knowing that we're making the most of this precious gift of time.
This has been an incredible deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and guidance.
It's been my pleasure.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave our listener with one final thought. If time is our most valuable resource,